looking on Instagram. I don't see it yet. I'll give a thumbs up as soon as I see it.
Okay, then we'll get started. All right, welcome everybody. This is Matter Monday. My name's Cassie and I'll be hosting for tonight's show. If you hear any background noise, it is my puppy. I apologize. He is very active right now. So tonight we have an exciting episode. So if you haven't been tuned in, we've been hosting a live stream every Monday night at 7 p.m. from November through December. So sadly, this is our last live stream of this season of Matter Monday. I'm sure we'll be, live streaming at some point in the future, but we don't have any future plans. This is the last time you'll catch us live for a little bit. And these are all part of our big annual fundraiser called News Match. So there is a suggested $5 donation for all of these live streams. If you are inclined to give, we actually have $5,000 left to raise by the end of this week before January. So we've already raised about $10,000 from donors. And I'm just seeing that we have some technical issues. Does it seem like we're good on audio at the very least? Can someone let me know? Okay, so it seems like we have audio. We might be having some video issues. So bear with us as we sort out any technical difficulties. Just letting y'all know that we have raised at this point already $10,000 from small donors here in Columbus, Ohio, this November and December, which is huge. We actually didn't expect to raise even that much. But as the campaign's gone on, we've actually created a goal of raising $15,000 because that will really allow us to be able to fund our investigations into policing and development, which we'll be talking about a bit more during this stream. I am so sorry. You can hear my puppy pretty loudly right now, so sorry about that. And he just took down a light. We will fix that later. So yeah, thank you so much. We are really focusing on that this next week. So if you can't afford to give to that fundraiser, that is super helpful, especially as a small independent nonprofit that's just getting off the ground. So without further ado, tonight's episode is really exciting because it's really a wild card of sorts. It's an AMA. So ask me anything, ask us anything. We want you, so we are a community informed newsroom and we want you to question the news. So we want you to be critical of your news sources, and that includes us. So not all of the questions need to be critical, but we're open to that. So if you do have any tough questions, if you just have questions about how our model works or anything about our coverage, please do throw it in the chat. We really want to hear from you during the live stream. But we did do quite a few posts on social media and through our email asking for people to go ahead and send us questions. And we do have several that have been submitted. So we're going to basically be having our team here introduce themselves and then answer some of those questions. So if you want to add any in the mix on any of our platforms, we are monitoring those for your comments. So like I said, I'm Cassie Young. If you're not familiar with me, I am one of the co-founders of Gray Matter Media and its news publication Matter News. And I am a co-managing director of the overall organization, and I do a lot with engagement. And so that's why I'm hosting this tonight. And so next we'll go to Marissa and just kind of go down the line and let you know who from the team's here tonight.
Hey everyone, like Cassie said, my name is Marissa Twig. I'm also a co-founder of Gray Matter Media, and at Matter News, I am our managing editor. And so there I spearhead our Develop Us investigation, so looking into city growth, development, housing, and affordability, among many other things. And I also support our Crossing the Line editors with content editing and content creation and story writing.
Awesome. I'll go next. So I am Jalen Grisso. I'm the editor-in-chief of Matter News and also one of the co-founders. I primarily see our overall editorial operations and help facilitate, including sometimes reporting as needed. And I also oversee our website and marketing operations.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Tommy Meade. I am the policing editor at Matter, and I guess a fun fact about myself is I am the first person that Matter has hired on as an employee. So that wraps it up about myself.
Hey, so I'm Philip Kim, happy to be here, and I serve as the board chair for the board of directors for Matter News. And the board is here to help support the staff and give advice, help solicit fundraising, utilize some of our expertise in many different areas, all to help out. And so I'm happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you so much, especially to Phil and Tommy for coming tonight. If you've been tuned into these so far, I am going to just let Marissa take it, and I'm going to try to fix a technical difficulty we're having with our Instagram feed really quick. Our first question, I'm going to let Marissa, if you can kind of facilitate this, this discussion for the first part. Our first question that we got submitted is, how are you funded? And that person said that they ask because money has changed local reporting in the past. So whoever wants to comment on that.
Yeah, so in terms of how Matter News and Gray Matter Media are funded, we are a grassroots community organization. And so we get our funding from donors primarily. So we see support from a lot of small donors. We also work to get grants. And so that's another part of our fundraising model that we're working towards. Now, that is a really difficult kind of path towards financial freedom, you might say, for Matter, because grants, being such a new organization, it can be really difficult to kind of build those connections this early on with funders who are looking to fund various projects. Also, we're a small team, and we have a diversity of experience here, right? But it can be really difficult to kind of meet some of the standards, some of the levels of experience that are required for a lot of grants as well. So sometimes, we've applied for several grants in the past, and it's, not always a super fruitful use of our time. But we did actually receive one grant, a project that I'm working on, from the Committee to Protect Journalists, on a U.S. Press Freedom Accountability Grant. So we're looking at policing, related to how that's impacted journalists and the press, and how that's looked, whether that's First Amendment rights and whatnot. Anyways, I'm diving into a little bit more of the content and not the funding, but that's where my brain goes a lot. But otherwise, our primary source of funding is donors. It's small individual donors. It's everyday people like you, watching this. And that really, helps. We don't have any advertisers right now. We don't take any ad revenue. And that really helps us, being able to truly be from the community and not be, a lot of advertisers have a profit motive, right? And so with this, when we're funded by the community, our motive is the community, right? And so, yeah, that's a little bit about our funding model. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in and kind of explain more in depth or anything, but yeah.
I would jump in, but I missed the very beginning of the question. So, Jay, if you had anything to add.
I was just going to say a big part of our model is not just donations, but also like very heavily focused on grassroots donations, like Marissa was kind of hitting on the end there, which is like that most of our donors are fairly small donors relatively, right? Like folks that are giving like, in some cases $1 or $5 a month. But we have now hundreds of people who are doing things like that, right? Who are giving larger one-time donations or giving a small amount every month. And that also helps to spread out who we're beholden to, right? So it genuinely is a community rather than, say, a large grant maker who could want you to bet certain coverage to what their specific mission is for their grant making institution, or in the for-profit model of things, large advertisers who may be able to say like, oh, we'll just pull all of our ad dollars if you say whatever, because they create a larger portion of your overall income. That means they have more power, right? we have tons and tons and tons of people who are donating, who are just everyday people who are subscribing and giving and expecting certain things from us. And so really at the end of the day, those are the people that we're financially beholden to, right? That being said, we're beholden to the community at large. That's part of the beauty of a nonprofit model, is that we're mission driven rather than financially driven. We don't have to worry about making sure that we're, turning a profit year after year, but rather that we're fulfilling our mission. So I just wanted to add that note about the kind of grassroots donations and how spreading it out a bit really helps insulate us against bending to the will of wherever we're getting money from.
Great kind of nuance there. And I'll also add, I think a benefit of having Phil on tonight is to demonstrate that when you're a nonprofit news outlet and that's how you're funded, you have a nonprofit board as well. And that's something that a for-profit news outlet, some of them may have boards, but they don't quite have the same role as a nonprofit board. So a nonprofit board, regardless of whether you're a news outlet or something else or doing something completely different, they are required legally. So if you don't know this, like the state of Ohio, to be able to operate as a nonprofit, you have to maintain a board to be able to get that status from the federal government. So to be able to do that, you have to have this board. They're volunteer typically, or always, I think. And so we have 11 members of our board right now, and they come from different parts of the Columbus community. And so for us, it's a little unique because we do limit it to people from Columbus. That's really the only way we limit it. Otherwise, we're trying to get a diverse set of people from the community that are, into different things and from different backgrounds. And really, legally, at the very least, they are tasked with making sure that the organization, the nonprofit, stays in line with its mission, and that they're spending donor funds in line with that mission as well. So even if we were to have, say, an advertiser in the future, or a major foundation that gives us a big chunk of money that makes up a good portion of our budget or something, we do have certain layers as a nonprofit that really insulate us in certain ways, not completely, but, help mitigate some of those risks of us potentially abusing our power, or, going off based on what someone wants us to do that might have some power in the situation. So just like to mention that there. If no one else wants to jump in with anything on funding, we'll actually pivot to a question that is a little bit more aimed at our more recent coverage, not just in that it's about our policing investigation, but I think that this person is probably referring to recent cases like the case of Casey Goodson Jr., probably mostly that case, and possibly of Andre Hill as well, and the police killings of both of those people. This commenter said, "What is Ron O'Brien saying at this hour?" And this was last week, so they were asking what was Ron O'Brien saying last week. And if you don't know who Ron O'Brien is, he is the Franklin County prosecutor. He's actually outgoing, so he has been in office for 20 years and is actually, this past November, was voted out of office. Gary Tyack will be taking office in January. But as of now, Ron O'Brien's office is technically still presiding over these cases, especially, I know, and Marissa and Jay, you can talk, and Tommy can talk more to the nuance of this. But in the case of Casey Goodson Jr., he was killed by a Franklin County sheriff. And I think Ron O'Brien would definitely be overseeing that case. I think also the case of Andre Hill, since it was in Franklin County, but y'all can speak more to that. He wants to know, essentially, this supporter, what is Ron O'Brien saying? And he added to that, is he out to lunch and not able to comment? So I think this person was feeling like they weren't hearing enough from the prosecutor that would preside over these cases.
Yeah, that's a great.
Of it. What I do know from the difference between Tyack and O'Brien is that Tyack, when they was discussing, had a panel a couple weeks ago, like a month or so ago, Tyack was saying that, he doesn't, speaking of O'Brien, he doesn't do a great job at his role, and he lets things and people off the hook. And I guess that's why we have Tyack coming into office within the coming year, because he's promised that he's different from that, and he will take do his job correctly, properly. And going with that, he wants to implement things like, instead of sending people straight to prison, for instance, implement things like giving them the mental help and that they need in terms of addiction and mental health in general. So I haven't heard much from O'Brien to be exact on the question. That yeah, I haven't heard much from him. I gotta do be more diligent, if you will. But I haven't heard much from him, to be honest. I just heard what the Quinlan from the police department, a lot of things that he said in regards to the tragic death of Casey Goodson Jr. And he just wants us all as a community to rely on the facts, and that's a typical statement from a police officer uh, at a time when, unfortunately, another death that happens to be another black person, his life was taken away.
Yeah, absolutely. From my understanding with the Goodson case, and I have not yet heard what O'Brien's statements have been, and we're on the press list, so if there was any public statement, we would have seen it. That being said, we also haven't reached out to his office for the Andre Hill shooting yet, but from my understanding, what he has said publicly is that contrary, or excuse me, I don't think Ron O'Brien has said anything about it except for that Tyack will be the one handling the case. And what Tyack has said is that he will be the one to handle the case rather than passing it off to somebody at the state level, which was kind of the precedent before. I believe it was passed off to BCI, but feel free to fact check me if anyone knows for sure that I'm not
Are you
right.
talking about the Goodson death?
Well, just in the past, I think that
Right.
O'Brien has similar in the past. So for cases of police violence in the past where there's been a shooting or just like a questionable use of force, I
Right.
think that what O'Brien has historically done is given that case and the hearing for it off to, I believe, BCI, which is the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations. Tyack has said that he is not going to do that, and rather he will be prosecuting the case himself, which is interesting because the framing that he has for it. So Ron O'Brien was framing it as like, we brought in these other folks for an extra layer of independence, right? And to have us be even more removed from it. Well, Tyack in response is framing it as, I'm going to be the one to prosecute this because I'm not going to pass the buck off to someone else, right? Like, this is my responsibility and I need to oversee this. So as far as I know, that's kind of where he stands on it. It'll still be a while before any of the evidence is given over to Tyack. Like I said, it should be Tyack before that actually has happened. And then once they hand over that evidence, then Tyack will prosecute it and they'll have a grand jury hearing. That's for the Goodson case. I think it'll be a similar protocol for the Hill case. I don't think there's anything within the Hill case that would mean it would be outside of that jurisdiction. But that's the most up-to-date info that I have about it. Marissa, I know you were kind of working on reporting a bit for a prosecutor story, so I don't know if you have any other updates that I might be missing, but if not, I think that might be it.
Nah, you guys had a pretty comprehensive explanation of it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you all for bringing us through that. I think at the end of the day, yeah, it's like we're in some really weird timing in terms of these cases because they happened, right in between the election and when the actual changing of office happens. And, I don't know for sure, but I imagine that some of these offices do have, even with some of these important things going on, reduced hours and staffing and things. So it's interesting to have this case where it's like Ron O'Brien's originally saying, I'm not the one that's ultimately going to handle this, but Gary Tyack sort of said, well, I'm not handling it yet. So it's almost, tricky to know who to kind of talk to at this moment. But at the very least, Gary Tyack will be taking office and will be overseeing this case. It sounds like Jalen said, not passing it off. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, we kind of glossed over this, but and Tommy talked about it just very briefly. But I mentioned that O'Brien has been in office for 20 years. So we are seeing for the very first time in 2 decades a change in the way things are going to be done, with a new person. And very much so Gary Tyack was running on the platform, and he is a Democrat. Ron O'Brien is a Republican, running much on sort of the wavelength of where a lot of the protests and things have been going, with wanting to be more prosecutorial of officers who are, misconduct and all those things, police misconduct generally. So very interesting. Thank you for updating us on those. In case you are tuned in right now and you don't know this, we are covering policing, like we've said a couple of times. Specifically, it's one of the two areas we're investigating. And so the recent cases of Casey Goodson Jr. and Andre Hill, we're focusing on very closely and trying to do our best to identify what are those gaps in local coverage. What are the things, because there are a lot of people covering this stuff locally, especially because the Goodson story has become national. But there, of course, are all kinds of places we can kind of fit in terms of providing a lot of context, nuance, depth, history to these issues here in Columbus. So stick around and check us out at matternews.org on the policing tab for more content about that and on our social. All right, so next, this question is probably best answered by Jay or potentially Marissa. Do we have contributors who like write articles for us, create content, and are we currently looking for some?
Okay, yeah, I'll take this one. Okay, so we do have contributors. There's a bit of a backstory to this. So we do have contributors, and we do take contributions from folks who do kind of freelance work. The quickest, easiest thing for me to say is that for anyone who is doing any reporting and has a specific story that you want to pitch us, you can pitch us at any point in time. If we don't have capacity at that moment, we might tell you like, hey, this is a great story. We just can't do it right now. What have you, right? That's very typical pitch process for most freelancers. Outside of that, we also have a bit of a network of contributors who we have working on various content for us at various points in time. We have historically relied very heavily on those contributors to produce a lot of the content for us. But what we found throughout the process of doing that is that we got very bottlenecked. So Marissa and I in editing, and Tommy, you definitely had this experience, I feel like a little bit as well, would just get backlogged with content. Like I still have stories. This is also partially because of the many hats we have to wear in the startup. But I still have stories that we wrote from data that we got during the May and June protests that I still haven't been able to publish, even though there's been 2 new cases that have come up in the process, and we've published, like, I don't even know, probably a dozen times since then. There's still the process of making sure that we go through and fact check it and do all those things is fairly rigorous, right? And so we ended up having so many people creating so much content for us that we weren't able to get it out in a timely manner anyway. And then on top of that, we also have contributors who are not consistently staying with the story as much as you would have like a reporter in a more traditional newsroom who is like has a full-time or part-time job doing that reporting. They would be able to hone their beat, right? And would be able to keep up with the breaking news of certain stories and things like that. And because we were using such a scattering of contributors, we were seeing things kind of fall in between the cracks because Marissa, Tommy, and I were spending most of our time editing and making sure content was really solid and was airtight, but not doing the reporting. And because of that, we were missing key reporting pieces that our contributors, many of whom are also writing for plenty of other publications or have other full-time jobs, also weren't able to keep up with. And so we've kind of had a bit of a shift a little bit to have some of the editors produce some more of our reporting, which means we probably won't be taking on any new contributors for a while. Even with the contributors we haven't been able to give out new stories recently because, like I said, there is a backlog of content. So always down for pitches, always down to hear stories, but unfortunately are probably not going to be able to take on new contributors for a while until we kind of figure out what a better pathway to not get so backlogged on content is.
Now, if you are watching this and you're thinking, I really wish Matter could have the capacity to take on more contributors, please do consider donating because, it really is a funding and capacity thing that the people you see on this call minus Phil are our only employees. We're not even paid full time. And we're all doing a million jobs within this company. So we just unfortunately don't have all the time in the world to be able to work with all of the content contributors who are interested in working with us. It's really amazing how many people are constantly, I get probably 1 email a week nowadays from someone who wants to intern with us or somehow gain experience through working with Matter. And that's really a big value of ours, is spreading more journalism skills, knowledge, et cetera, to the people of the community. And we have taken on a lot of content contributors who are not necessarily really well trained. We're actually helping mentor them. And so we really are trying to do our best to bring in different people from the community. Just because you see Marissa, Jay, and Tommy creating more of our content right now and coming up, that doesn't mean we're not still going to be cranking out tons of content from people all over the city that are working with us. But like Jay said, we just have such a backlog. We have so much content already under the works, so we kind of have to hit a pause on growing the team from here. But if you are interested, that doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out. There could be certain volunteer opportunities or other ways that we could potentially get you involved. Like I said, we also will have internship opportunities coming up this spring. So please do reach out if you're interested, but please know that we might not be able to take on more content contributors in the near future, unless you, like Jay said, if you have a specific story, especially if you are a journalist with some more experience, please do still pitch us, because that might be a little bit more doable for us. Or if the story really aligns with our investigation, we're not completely closed off to new things. So please do. I know it's not a neat answer we're giving here. We're fumbling through it. We're trying to give you the nuance of kind of where we're at with these things. And it's hard to just say like, no, we can't take any new people, because that's not totally the case. But then again, I don't want to get people's hopes up that like Matter can take on all the contributors in the city that want to work for an innovative news outlet, because there's a lot of those people out there, and we're trying to grow so we can accommodate them all. All right.
Oh, wait, real quick before you move on. I just wanted to say, for those who are looking for an internship, we will be offering 2 internships. I don't know if we've decided if you need to have college credit or not. I think we still need to kind of, I don't think we've made an official decision on that, but we are looking for interns. We will have 2 positions open, and you should be seeing the application in February or March, and interviews will be in March or April. So this will be the first time we've had a formal interview process. In the past, we've kind of just accepted a couple interns as they come. But this year, due to the increase in interest in internships with us, we're going to hold a more formal interview process. And if you are interested, contact me with any questions. I'd be happy to answer. I've managed our interns in the past. So one of the other hats that I wear besides journalist is also internship manager, coordinator, whatever you want to call it. So if you have any questions, you're a student looking for experience, or you just want to, ask a local nonprofit news organization about what it's like running a new, working for and reporting in a nonprofit news organization, we're here for that too. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I got just a quick thing to add on. For my role as a board member, we are volunteering our time, and it's also amazing to see just the process and the growth that the organization has taken, because I know Cassie, Jalen, Mercy, you all essentially volunteered, your work to get this started. And the growth has been amazing, and it's because of all the hard work you put in, but also, these bunch of volunteers, people like our board members who are passionate community members. So, this is a different type of organization in terms of the news, and it's primarily because, again, it's a nonprofit community-oriented kind of organization, which is why people are so passionate and want to help, and I always think about these newer emerging organizations, and I think about, organizations that have been around for decades, and they all started somewhere, and it's really cool to see and be part of that start, right? So it's another call in to say, if you're passionate about your community, especially Columbus and everything that's happening, you're going to want to learn more about the community, right? And learn more about what's happening. And that's part of this whole process, and why, I support this organization, and why I think others should as well. So just wanted to add that on real quick.
So well spoken, Phil.
For sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. And just want to echo what Marissa said. I've had a couple people email me in recent weeks or DM me asking just, hey, I really love the work you're doing, and I just want to learn how you got started. And, so even if you just want to chat, we are very open to that. And we're just really passionate about more people doing the work we're doing. even if you can't do that with us, or we don't have room currently for you, we want to try to empower you to do this work, whether it's starting your own news outlet or just, freelancing or whatever it is. Because, if you've watched if you've tuned into any of our marketing over the last couple of months, you might have seen some stats around how much the news industry is declining. And so if you haven't seen those, like Franklin County alone has lost, I think it's 63% of its newspaper journalists since I think it's a decade ago or so. I'm a little off on the exact statistics, but it's an incredible amount of journalists that have been lost. And that's just due to the declining industry. What's really, we believe, really coming up in its place, and we know this for a fact, is nonprofit news, independent news, freelancers. So really, you at the end of the day, we as the community have to fill the gap for ourselves. So please do let us know how we can help you get into this work if you're interested in that. All right. Well, we will take a little change in topic then. This is a supporter of ours who asked a pretty interesting question. I think that probably one of us from the core team will answer this, me, Jay, or Marissa, just because we handle with these kind of things more often. So they said, as a comprehensive news outlet, thank you. And this was Brittany Lander. She did post this publicly on her Instagram. So the rest of them were submitted by Instagram story, and I didn't ask for permission to share the person's name. So the rest of them I'm keeping anonymous, but Brittany did comment publicly and ask, as a comprehensive news outlet, thank you, Brittany, have you been stopped or tried to be suppressed/silenced on topics you're covering? And she added, by government entities, big regional media entities, etc. Do one of you want to answer that?
Sure, yeah, I'll take this one. So I would say the very quick short answer is no. We haven't had anyone, especially not power players, that have come into the space and have explicitly asked us to stop or to not publish or to pull back something that we've already published. That being said, we have had questions from certain people, especially around policing. I do think it's important to note that it has only happened for our Crossing the Line investigation and has not happened for our Develop Us investigation. Actually, the feedback we've gotten for our Develop Us investigation from city officials and other folks that are more power players was thanking us for explaining parts of the coverage, which I think I've joked in the past has always given me a little bit of a crisis, because usually as a journalist, when it's the people in power giving you credit for what you're doing, you have to question it a little bit. But for policing, that has not been the case. Not to say that anyone has really come after us in terms of power players. Not that anyone from the city or anything like that has really come after us, but there have been some folks who have called us up and asked us to clarify certain things and have asked for off the record conversations to say, we want to make sure that the public is very aware. So especially with the Goodson case and the Hill case, to say the public is very aware of exactly which agencies are at play here, or when we say police, are you talking about CPD or the sheriff's office or the U.S. Marshals, right? And to clarify some of those points, we have had some folks that have expressed a certain level of unhappiness, feeling like their viewpoint was not fully represented, again, that being the viewpoint of the police or from the city, and that certain stories weren't balanced to what they would say would be appropriate. I would push back on that for a lot of the stories that they have brought up. And I think part of the conversation is also about not just balance within an individual story. And we've talked about this a good bit in the past as well, but holistic coverage, right? And looking at what is the broader narrative of not just our news organization, but other news organizations, and what is the role that we could fit within that as well. So not just looking at, do we have an equal amount from the police in this story, as well as protesters, as well as the victim's family, as well as blah, blah, blah. But instead saying, in the overall picture, in the overall landscape of things, what is not being seen or heard from as much? Who are these groups? Who are these players? And can we give them a bit of a voice? And so we have had folks having conversations with us along those lines and questioning sources, things like that. It's never been anything that's been you need to take this down, or we're demanding that you take this down, but is usually we would love it if you would clarify and perhaps include more balance. For certain things, I think that there was some fairness in wanting more clarity and more nuance in headlines and things like that. And so there were things like that we've taken feedback from city officials and said, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. And that could cause more misinformation because there's a lack of clarity there. But a lot of things we've also said, like, okay, we appreciate your feedback, but we disagree. That's not what we think is important in this space and what we feel like we should be doing to fulfill our mission. So the short answer is no. The long answer is a little bit, kind of pushing at the edges a little bit. We also have had feedback from community members and stuff as well in terms of our coverage. And that, of course, is treated differently from us in terms of the way that we view community feedback versus like the city saying something to us. But even with that feedback, we always discuss it and kind of figure out what is the best way that we can still be focused on our mission and still be fulfilling our mission. And so, yeah, we haven't really had a ton of that, but there's been kind of beginning inklings of it in some ways.
Great. Yeah, it's a tricky game. We haven't seen much. I think the real point there that I think Brittany was trying to get at is like, is anyone from above really trying to stifle what you're doing? And like Jay said, we don't feel like that completely, but they're definitely paying attention to what we're doing. We're hearing from them about it. And, we are gaining more attention, especially like we said, with the development issue. We maybe had one person that ever pointed something out, or it was mainly people saying, oh, I think you got your calculations a little wrong on some of this data or something. But with the policing, that opens us up to a topic that involves, trauma, all kinds of really intense power dynamics and different things, the protests and the fact that we've been covering those. And we'll be putting out a blog post soon that talks a little bit about kind of some of the trickiness of that. And so stepping into this territory, like I think when we opened a policing investigation, we knew this is serious territory, but you don't necessarily foresee all of those scenarios that are going to come up where people are worried about, different things that you're posting and whether you're, saying it in a certain way. And especially with issues like this, when we're talking about a development project, those can be high stakes, those can be charged. But when we're talking about lives here, really and protests and issues of state security and policing and all of that, it really gets into tricky territory for us to balance, keeping good relations with some of these government entities and, doing our due diligence to really make sure we're getting comment from them and doing the right things there. But also, like Jay said, balancing that with the fact that we really want to get other narratives out here. And, for me, at least, it's like, we're constantly, hearing certain stories. And like I said, we're really trying to fill gaps. So you're not necessarily going to hear all the same things. We don't want you to hear from the same voices that you're hearing from all the other outlets from our outlet. So you might see some difference there. And I know I went on a bit of a tangent there. So we'll wrap it back around.
There is one point real fast, Cass, that I wanted to add, actually. I think one of the things, so I think when people in power are trying to peddle influence, it's rarely in any sphere, right? It's rarely as direct as like, hey, I don't want you to do this, don't do this thing, right? Instead, it tends to be more indirect ways, like a lobbyist donates a little bit of money from his wife and starts getting cozier and shows up at your birthday party and like whatever, right? Like those kind of more indirect ways tend to be the ways that influence is peddled, both sides of that, right? Like trying to get in certain doors or trying to stop certain things from happening. The things I worry about more for what we're doing and the kind of coverage we're doing is not that I'm ever going to get a call from someone from the city saying like, hey, you need to take this story down. Like, this is not okay. You can't do this. But instead, that our access to information will be limited. And that will hinder our ability to be able to report. So for example, in this breaking news coverage that's been happening around Goodson and around Hill, news has been changing like literally by the hour, right? And so that means that in order for us to keep up with the mainstream outlets and other folks that are reporting on this, we need to have access to those public statements and those statements that are being put out as quickly as they are coming out. And most agencies that we've worked with in this process have put us on their media lists and have reached out to us, and it's been no problem. But I have asked repeatedly to be on CPD's email list for their press stuff, and we have repeatedly not been included in that list, even though I've asked several different people from the city as well as CPD to be included in that list, right? So that means that mainstream outlets who have more of a history of working with the police for these kinds of reporting and stuff will get priority access to that information, which means that we aren't actually getting fair and equitable access to that information and being able to be an independent grassroots nonprofit organization that is reporting on these things. And so I don't think the fear is ever going to be like someone from above is going to call us and say, hey, don't do this, but rather that slowly but surely our access will be limited. And I think that is a real fear. I think that especially for even other independent news sources that I talk to that are working in this sphere, it's easy for those people in the power. It's easy for those power players to not think about us and to not include us in that process. But in that process, they're perpetuating news organizations that are in power and oftentimes are promoting the same kind of narratives that have been damaging and have hurt communities of color and have perpetuated this kind of idea of like the police as being infallible and things like that. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but I just wanted to mention that it's more of those like sneaky little ways that I think could be damaging in the long run.
Yeah, and that's why, we really need the community's support for this, and really making it clear, not only like by donating and things like that, but, the local news is something you can be advocating to, your friends, your elected officials, like, there's all kinds of ways that we can be educating and really educating our elected officials. And I know not all of these people we're talking about are elected, but, at the end of the day, they are city employees. They are county employees. They're people that ultimately are supposed to be accountable to you. So making sure to really like tell them it's important to me that you get information to independent news outlets, that you respond to them quickly because they're who I rely on for information. Name dropping matter to people and saying this is who I rely on never hurts. All right, real quick, we have a couple more questions. They're pretty perfect for ending the stream, so we can go into them now. But first, I want to double check that we don't have any questions that have come through any of our feeds.
Nothing on YouTube or Twitch.
Cool.
Nothing on Facebook or Instagram either.
Okay, cool. So we'll go into these last two, and we may go till 8. We might end a little bit early depending on how these go. All right, so one question that came through Instagram is, can you feel the community's gratitude for your work?
100% yes. Oh my gosh. So in journalism school, they teach you all about Twitter and how your career is, partially on Twitter. Jalen's laughing because she knows exactly where I'm going, and Cassie and Phil are smiling. But I'm a Twitter freak. I really enjoy being on, and kind of talking about stuff on there. And through, the reporting that I've been doing with Matter, I've been able to cultivate, relationships with people, through that platform and kind of get to know and understand, not only just about these people, but about the struggles that they're facing and the questions that they want answered. And people have been so, just building that relationship and opening up that door to that relationship and saying, hey, we're here. We want to talk. We want to answer questions for you. People have been, just flooding in, and people have thanked me, for live tweeting, press conferences, for writing stories, for getting their questions answered. And so many people have, sent us such heartwarming comments about, over the summer when I had all the blue hair and was covering protests. There's a person who who DM'd us on Instagram and said, thank you so much she was a Black woman, I believe. And she said, thank you so much for, the coverage that you're providing. The live coverage that you provide helps me feel safer because I know what's going on. And I kid you not, I tear up when I read comments like that. I tear up when people tell me like, thank you for actually responding to me and taking the time to talk to me because other people aren't doing that. And I think that's, and so I'm just so appreciative of every single person who has, sent any comment, liked anything or retweeted anything and just like wanted to connect with me generally, because I generally, you all are my neighbors. That's how I view the work that I do, truly. And I live in Hilltop. I'm here to report on the things that are happening to the people living here, the things that I'm also experiencing in my neighborhood, and the things that, in terms of development and gentrification and growth and things like that, in addition to, watching day to day what policing looks like, I mean, every day there are cops outside my house and, you know, in the neighborhood that I live in. And I watch all these interactions. And so just to be able to connect with people on all of these different levels, and to have people just tell us how grateful they are for the work that we're doing, it brings tears to my eyes and really gives me the energy, the motivation, and you know, the continues to drive my passion of why we're doing this work. Why, you know, for 2 years I didn't get paid, you know, to do this stuff. And that's the reality of what we were doing. You know, we do it because we love this work and we love this community. And yes, heck yes, I can feel the gratitude, and I'm starting to get a little teared up thinking about it. So I'm just gonna let someone else like talk now. I love you all.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was very cute.
I'll say something. I only been here since late August, and I can feel the feedback myself. Nothing feels better than feedback from the community when you're doing something like writing journalism. It's the best really feeling to have, whether it be positive or negative. And even though I've been here for a short while, I love to see the feedback that we get on Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms. Because these incredible ladies, co-founders of ours, they're awesome. They really are, and they do a lot of hard work. And it's so good to see if we get feedback for something like the things that we're doing in the community. I'm right down the street from Marissa in the Franklinton area, and like she said, I see it every day. So it's good that not only that you're making a positive impact in the community, you're also getting feedback for it as well. It's pretty awesome.
I didn't realize you were just down the street in Franklinton.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we gotta do some socially distant hangs sometime.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, thank you all. I for those answers, I totally agree. I think it was really tough building Matter the first years because there wasn't as much hype. People didn't know about us. We didn't have as much content out there just because we were struggling to just get this organization up, stumble through figuring out how to build a nonprofit. None of us have done this before. We do everything in-house, so we don't even really contract people to help us with things. We're just doing everything, ourselves. And so the support is literally the only reason that we're able to do this. And it kind of segues into the next question, which I wasn't really going to have us answer unless anyone has like a brilliant answer that's like insightful and helpful. But because otherwise I feel like it's just going to be sound like we have big egos to answer this. But someone asked, why are y'all so awesome? And I think part of that answer relates to what we just answered, which is that like we can do this work because of your support. And literally like we have burnt out several times. Even now that we have the level of support we do, just the enormity of what we're trying to build, I think has made us realize, because a lot of times we're like, why isn't there more media, independent media in Columbus? Why aren't there more Matter News existing? Why did we have to build this? And it's because it's hard. It turns
Really
out
hard.
it's because it's hard. And it literally is soul crushing sometimes. And there are really, like we said, serious concerns coming from all angles, about some of these really intense topics that we're covering. So we would literally have been burnt out, crying in a ditch somewhere if you hadn't donated already to this campaign last year when we got our first little infusion of cash. Just to give you guys an idea, and in the future, we'll have a lot more detailed information on our site that'll give you like the whole nitty gritty of our budget. But our first year, we had zero budget. And like Phil said, like Marissa and Jalen and I really were working jobs on top of jobs and dedicating so much time to this. And shoot, I just lost where I was going with it. Of course, I got on a tangent, but point being, I was going to let you know that our first year we had like no funding. Second year, with the bit of infusion of cash we got from our first fundraiser, which was this past year, we had a budget of around, I think, 29,000. I could be slightly off on that, or maybe it was 26,000, but small budget for all the things we're trying to do. And then this current fiscal year we're in, the goal we're trying to hit is getting up to an $80,000 budget, which, is really great growth for us. But still, I just want to tell you those figures that if you know anything about running organizations, $80,000 is nothing. And we really are doing the best with what we have. And any little donation literally makes a difference. Here's where I will just say, today I was looking at our information, our statistics, and we've had a little over 100 people sign up to be monthly donors. So those are members, those are people who donate, whether it's $1, whether it's $50 a month to us. We've had over 100 people actually become monthly donors, and that's the best way to help us be sustainable, is to become a sustaining member, someone who's actually bringing in income to Matter consistently every month, so we can rely on that income and use it to pay contributors. We eventually want to get an office space again so that we can all work together. So we really appreciate you all considering how much support you've already provided us and how much we still very much need. If there's
Can I just say real quick, I just think, thinking about how the idea of it being hard or difficult, and I think that, that's there for a reason, as in the people in power or people who want to control the way things are, the status quo, have actively tried to make it harder, right? And that's why it is so hard. And so if we want to be more progressive and get some things changed, it's at all levels where we need to be advocating, exactly as you've all said, for fair news, for more information. And that point about access of information is really important as well. And I don't think people even I didn't really know how challenging and difficult journalism is. We kind of just consume news all day and see it. There's music blogs, there's news of all different sorts. And when you talk about policing and even development, those are really heavy, intense, complicated topics. And so it is hard. And I think that's why having the community be part of it is really the thing that'll lift you guys up and really help the community in return. It's kind of a reciprocal thing for me. So that's just all to say. I know how difficult it is, and I'm so impressed by all the work you've already accomplished. And so, yeah, great job.
Thank you so much, Phil, for all your support. We've really been very blessed to have a board that supports us. And so we have supporters in many different forms. Some are people who share our content. So one thing I wanted to say on Can You Feel the Gratitude from the community, we have certain people now at this point who share our content every time we post something. We have people who literally make our latest article the link in their bio, or our event the link in their bio. We have certain local businesses, the Instagram accounts, Yellow Brick Pizza and Columbus Veg Community. I just have to shout them out because they are just such super supporters and are the kind of people that are really trying to get the word out about Matter's work to other people. And so there are just people who are going to great lengths to make sure that our mission gets spread. And it really, like I said, it was very slow going for the first year or so, but now that we really are starting to get out into further parts of the community, people that we don't necessarily know personally, it is really incredible that just honestly, hella strangers are just coming out of the woodwork, saying they love our stuff, donating, right when they find out about us, just because they're so excited that something like this exists. So we really do appreciate every little comment that you send to us, letting us know that you appreciate our work. We actually do have a little channel in our Slack where we send some of these screenshots of some of these nice messages we get to the rest of the team, so that we can look back at that channel on days where we want to cry and curl up in a ball because journalism is hard. So
that channel is my literal work happy place. I'm like, okay, I can't do this. I'm going to the Praise Us channel. I need a second.
Yes. So thank you so much, everybody. And the last question is actually the question I kind of answer at the end of every live stream. So we are getting close to 8 o'clock, and we'll close out here if no one on our little team here has anything else that they're burning to say. Our final question was about how everyone can best support Matter. And so, of course, right now, especially, the best way you can support Matter is donating or asking someone in your life who can afford to donate to do so before Friday. So we have to ideally raise $5,000 before Friday, 5,000 more. We've already raised about 10,000 from donors to be able to hit our goal and be able to fully fund our investigations. This isn't like Kickstarter. We will get the funds regardless of whether we hit that goal. But like I said, we'll be under budget if we don't hit that goal. So we really appreciate the community really showing out for us these next 4 days to really get us as many donations as we can to be able to keep producing quality local news. But if you can't give, like I said, asking others to donate, sharing our content, subscribing to our email newsletters, following us on social media, those are all great ways. All of our content is republishable, especially if you just as a human being are republishing our content, reposting our stuff. You can download our stuff and post it as long as you somehow credit us or mention us. We really appreciate that. We have republishing guidelines on our website. So we are trying to get our content just out there as much as we can. So don't be shy about sharing our things, whether it's content or messages and about our model. Anyone else on the call want to add anything about how to support us right now before we wrap up?
I guess I just want to reiterate, just like spreading the word about us, just the simplest thing you could do is, help us cheat the Instagram algorithm or Facebook algorithm or Twitter or whatever. And just help, share our stories, share our community stories, help us tell the story, help us tell these stories. The more that we can, spread the word about this stuff, the more that we'll be able to continue supporting our community moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. There is a $5 suggested donation for this particular stream. So if you want to make that donation or one that's slightly higher if you can afford it, matternews.org/donate is your place. We have links in pretty much all of our bios. You should be able to get there. DM us if you can't find it for some reason. We appreciate you all so much. Thank you to everybody that participated tonight. We won't be live again. TBD when the next Matter Monday will be. So just stay tuned for that. But otherwise, we won't be live next Monday. This is our last stream of 2020 and of this season. So we thank you so much for all of your support in every form and hope you have a happy and safe new year with your loved ones.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
All right, y'all. Cut the feeds.
Bye, Phil.
So like, yeah.